start with this. A location-independent business where you live anywhere and earn everywhere. It sounds like the ultimate wish fulfilled, is it?
Well, it is for me, and I think for an increasingly large amount of people. The interesting thing about that is I've been technically location independent since I started CopyBlogger in 2006, but I had two young children. We were living in Dallas, Texas at the time, where my wife's mother and sister were living. Um, so, family, especially at that stage of life, is very important. In 2012, I kind of helped everyone move with us to Boulder, Colorado, because I really wanted to leave Dallas. um, and so then we spent wonderful, 12 or 13 years, yeah, in Boulder. But the plan was that for my wife and I, that when the kids were, both sufficiently out on their own, which means we didn't just pack up and leave the day they turned 18. We gave them a little time. They're both in their 20s now. My daughter's about to be 24. My son just turned 21. He's a junior in school there at the University of Colorado. So we ended up staying a year extra because my son was going to school in Boulder, and we figured that that additional year would be great for everyone involved. But last year, yeah, we middle of the year we left and spent the remaining 6 months in Mexico. Then we went to Costa Rica for the first 3 months of this year. And now we have made it across the pond over to France, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time this year exploring areas of Europe to make it worth the trip, right?
So you are a digital nomad, and you've got your wife with you, and your two children who are in their 20s are still in the United States, living their own lives.
That's correct.
CopyBlogger in 2006, you started it with $1,000, which was seeding funding. What did you do with the $1,000?
It was actually for a design, a redesign. I started with a very kind of primitive WordPress theme, and then I met a guy who later would become a business partner, who was a very unique and talented WordPress designer. And so I got a $3,000 design for $1,000 because I was his buddy. And that and hosting fees were basically all, web hosting. That was all the startup capital I had. Now I put in a lot of time, which we shouldn't discount. But, as far as being able to evolve into 7 and 8 figure in revenue, it's kind of amazing. And we would always blow anytime we would talk to a traditional banker, or even, later on when we talked to potential investors before we decided we would sell instead. They just didn't understand. They're like, where's the line item for customer acquisition? And I'm like, we don't have one. It's our people, and it's the audience we attract. So that's really the thing. I mean, the audience I attracted in 2006 and 2007, I can point back to that and say that was $70 million in sales over the next decade, which is phenomenal. It's amazing. But those were the golden years of, the young social media. Search engine optimization was, not quite as inundated and as competitive as it is now. So it was a unique time. But the principles of the content that we created and the audience first model still work to this day, and that's what we're all doing here on Substack. So, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But Substack is one of the few places where you can still organically attract an audience. A lot of people are paying big money to build audiences because, again, if you can get a 7 or 8 figure business out of it, why wouldn't you invest in that? But I still like the organic approach. Unfortunately, I see Substack as really the last outpost for us to do that.
Well, that's profound coming from you. You came to Substack, what was it, January last year?
With Further, I did. I had an earlier project in 2023, which is, before then I was kind of anti-Substack because I didn't understand it well enough to see how it was differentiated from any other case of building on someone else's land. But then I had a project. I didn't want to build a website for it because I knew it was going to be temporary. And so I said, what the heck? And then I looked into Substack's terms and conditions, and the email list is yours, your content is yours. In reality, it's not that much different than hosting a WordPress site, except you don't pay for it. And usually when you don't pay for it, that's when the warning bells go off. But it's Substack's model is unique. And so that initial project, I just came in and started talking about the longevity economy, which is part of what I talk about at Further Now. And that's who the audience is at Further Now. But this was really about the phenomenon itself, because so many people were completely unaware the fact that we're becoming an older society, that most of the spending power is held with people over the age of 50, while the advertisers and businesses are still chasing Gen Z, who are, in my experience, broke, because, as I often say, the only money my kids have is what I still give them. So,
And you're spending it with your wife moving around from here to
exactly.
there. There might not be too much left by the time you hit 60.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys got to get a job.
Start working at McDonald's, guys. But 2006, $1,000 seeding money. The definition, somebody's definition I read of CopyBlogger was a one-man blog launched in 2006 and applying direct response copywriting to online content. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that is the gist of it. That was one aspect of what CopyBlogger was about. And the other aspect was quit trying to monetize with advertising. And this is a mistake I made back in 98 when I first started trying to build businesses with online marketing and models. The second thing was, and don't monetize with advertising. You need to sell people things, which is, on the internet is direct marketing. And that all goes back to one line in Seth Godin's Permission Marketing that said, the internet is the greatest direct marketing medium the world has ever seen. Now, most people think of infomercials and junk mail when they think of direct marketing, but it just means you have a direct relationship with the prospect without an intermediary. And so that was a light bulb moment for me. And I, eventually the first business failed. It's the only business I've started that hasn't worked out because I had no idea what I was doing. I had a terrible model. But back then, you could build an audience of 10,000 people on email without even trying, because people signed up for everything back in those days. And now it's obviously much more competitive, and you got to work a lot harder to get trust. But the model is essentially the same, as long as you have something of value to sell that's related to, the problem the audience has.
So even before 98, when you started dipping your toes into the internet business, making money online, shall we say, you were a lawyer and even a real estate broker. So that would have given you some stability of income, I would have thought. So what made you change and pursue the instability of making money online?
So I was an attorney from 94, and then I left. I had a really attractive large law firm job that I just happen to also hate. And that's not an uncommon thing among lawyers. What's uncommon is someone walking away because obviously it's a prestigious and highly lucrative career.
What did you
So
hate
even
about
though
it? What did you hate about it?
it just if you see TV shows about the practice of law, it looks probably more glamorous than it is. But especially as a young associate, it's a lot of tedious work. But I just didn't really see myself even wanting to become like the partners that I worked for, right? They were not people that I looked at and said, "Oh, I want that life." They worked too much, they drank too much, they often had difficulties in the relationships. It's a tough profession, and it's not all that interesting for the most part. It's a very tedious amount of work, and I considered myself a little more creative than that. Every frustrated lawyer wants to become a writer for some reason because that's within the wheelhouse of our skill set, is the ability to communicate and to persuade and all of that good stuff. But again, most people don't do it. So when I left to start that first business, I had not yet even thought about real estate. That came later when I had figured out what I was doing with marketing and with digital business models. And I said, what's a way to make a lot of money with my, you know, backstory? And I said, real estate, right? So, and that turned out to be the case. So that was my first true entrepreneurial success, was effectively a real estate brokerage, but it was pretty much entirely online. And this was before Zillow existed and all of the big real estate listing sites. But I used this new technology called IDX to display the MLS on my website, along with a bunch of persuasive content that talked about how buyers often get the short end of a stick compared to sellers in the typical real estate transaction. So I was this unique kind of broker that only represented buyers, right? So even then, I had this understanding that you go more narrow to get more clients by speaking directly to a specific problem. And soon, a couple of years in, I was making more money than if I would have made partner in that law firm. And then yet, once again, it took a near-death experience to wake me up to the fact that doing things just for money, I don't think a lot of people find that satisfying. But again, some people will put up with it, but I'm not one of them. And I had this epiphany after I had emergency brain surgery that I'm like, life is too short. I'm not doing this anymore. I want to do something more in line
What
with
happened,
my
Brian, that you
talents
required
and
emergency
temperament. And
brain
that,
surgery? What
I'm
happened?
sorry,
What
go
happened
ahead.
that you? What happened? Sorry, what happened that you required emergency brain surgery?
Snowboarding accident. Yes. Back 20 years ago, wearing a helmet was not the norm that it is today, and I paid for that.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a subdural hematoma. I didn't realize it right away. It was a slow brain bleed. And by the time I got to the emergency room, it was very, very close to being the end of things. And, my son had just been born. He was a month old. My daughter was only 3. So that was a big turning point. I would say more substantial by far than deciding to leave the practice of law.
Wow.
But that's when I started CopyBlogger. At that point, I had 7 years of experience with digital marketing. And basically, I started teaching people what I did, which was content marketing 2 years before it had a name. In fact, my friend Joe Polizzi in 2008 said, what you're teaching, we should call it content marketing. We need a name. And I'm like, that's a terrible name, but okay.
It's
And
stuck.
the rest is history. Yeah, it did stuck, and it became a huge
So
industry,
you weren't
obviously.
broke in 2006. You weren't hand out looking for this seeding money of $1,000. I got the impression that you were sort of had no money and you got $1,000 and then you turned it into 10 million.
Well, I had, I had some health insurance, but there were a lot of bills related to that situation. And I started doing more project-based work after I left the real estate company. I tried to sell it, but it was so dependent on me. It couldn't work. So I would say that not broke, but definitely apprehensive, especially with two young children. Yeah, but that to me was a motivator. I'm pretty good with my back against the wall. But the remarkable thing about the $1,000 is that's all it took,
Mm.
not, not that's all I had necessarily.
And
So,
in today's currency, that's about $1,600 US. So it's not that much less than what it's worth today,
right.
$1,000.
And you can, I think it's even easier now with tools like Substack because I had to build the site on WordPress and, pay a designer for a design. And these days you can get started much quicker, but the fundamental of what leads to success generally doesn't have as much to do with how much you spend unless you're using ads to attract an audience. It has to do with who you're targeting, the problem they have, and your unique ability to say something about that they haven't heard before. And that was certainly true of CopyBlogger. In fact, most of the big bloggers at the time hated what I said. Sell things with a blog? Oh, that's blasphemy. But their audience
Sounds like
wanted
what's
to hear
happening on
about it.
Substack today to some extent.
Yeah. Oh, it's always the same. People hate change, even if it's positive.
Yeah.
But you got to be the guy, and I appreciate what you're doing with your message about Substack video because the standard response, and I'm a writer at heart. Okay, I don't, I haven't done video until recently, really, but I appreciate what you're saying because I think that everything is shifting and we have to shift as well or we get left behind.
And in fact, your most recent post on your Substack publication further. By the way, if people want to subscribe to Brian's publication, you can do so by clicking the link on Substack or going to further.net to know more about it. I'd recommend doing that. And your last post, you actually embed a video, a talking head video face to camera. And I want to ask you about that since you brought up video, because look, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're clearly using a teleprompter, but you're doing it very well, and you don't see. Well, tell me if I'm wrong. Are you using a teleprompter?
In a sense, yes, I do have a script, and I just did it behind. So, okay, this is a course for Further Premium. It's the paid version, but I often leave the video part out because it's just an introduction, and there's an extensive lesson that follows it. And I just did a behind the scenes video for my subscribers, which is not available to the general public. And, that's where I go through. I'm like, if you didn't notice, you probably noticed at the beginning, but I'm getting better. I'm reading from a script. And the
Yeah,
key is to do it without sounding like you're reading from a script. And
and
then
you
a
do
whole
it
bunch
very
of
well.
other things that I talked about the production of the course. But I think probably the most meaningful thing that I revealed is I committed to do this course because I think video is becoming more important. I need to do more of it, and I have resistance to it. So by committing to you, people who pay me, that I'm going to do this course with video, I forced myself to do the reps, right? So now I'm 14 something videos in, and you can see how much I've improved. I can see, and I still don't think it's good because I am overly critical of myself on video, but
Aren't we
it's
all?
better. And that's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah, yeah. You do get better the more you do. Face the fear. You don't need confidence. You need courage. And I think it's obvious that you're using a teleprompter, or maybe to some. It was to me, but the way that you you're probably one of the better, if not the best, people using a script or teleprompter script, whatever it is. What software do you use? Yeah. So how's that working? Have you got an app running the script on the?
No, it's just a Google Doc, believe it or not.
No,
And
get out of here.
I used a script which you can record straight into. So I've got the doc, and then here's the secret sauce, though, Mike. The script has a AI feature called eye correction, and if you look like you're looking down at your script, it makes it look like you're looking at the camera the entire time. So that's that's a free tip of trickery right there, but it's a lifesaver.
That is wizardry. That is trickery. That is bloody brilliant. Well, you know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, my time. I'm going to be going and practicing on Google Docs with that eye correct. I didn't know that, and that is such because I was looking at your eyes, and I thought he's looking straight at camera. How could he be?
Yeah. Well, you know, with there are teleprompters and you have to set it up with your own camera, but I'm using my Mac camera and a Google Doc. I mean, it is low commitment. Now, may I invest in more fancy tech going forward? Perhaps, but I had to prove I would do video on a consistent basis. But I've also gotten past, again, like I said, I never am happy. I write things and I'm like, damn, that's good. I never look at a video of me and go, oh, you're awesome. It just doesn't happen.
Never will.
Yeah, you're probably right. But that's not the issue, because other people say, I thought it was great, you know, and that's what matters. So
yeah, that is what matters. Well, that ties in perfectly with your core philosophy of audience first. And I want to ask you, how would you explain this philosophy of audience first to a first timer, someone who's got no clue?
Right. So most people will start a business, and certainly if it's product based, they have an idea, they create a product that could be digital, or it could be manufacturing, or, you know, a serious investment. And then they go out looking for people to sell it to. And that's why most businesses fail, because it turns out perhaps that no one wanted that product in the first place. You just thought it was a cool idea. So audience first solves two problems. You have a built-in market, not a out there market, but a very personal market to you in the specific audience and you've won their trust with delivering with generosity and with expertise and authority and all that good stuff. And by the time you launch an offer, as long as you're on the mark, then you've got this built-in set of prospective buyers. You're not out hunting for people to buy your thing. You did that first. And then the second part is, especially when it comes to product development or even an innovative service, getting feedback from the audience will give you much more guidance towards building something that people actually want. And I'm not saying you ask them. It's not that simple. You can ask questions, but you can't ask them what they want to buy. The worst thing you can do is ask someone what they want to buy, because they'll lie to you, right? The only way you can know for sure what someone will buy is if they take out their credit card and actually do so. But you can pay attention to signals in the form of content, open rates, clicks, replies to your emails. All of this is information that helps you better understand the pain points and what people are lacking. And that's how we developed every product. From the very first CopyBlogger product was a course that became $1 million business. The second product was a piece of WordPress software. The third product was a SaaS. This was three launches, 3 years, 3 separate companies, because I had different co-founders in each one who would, like, I'm not a coder, so you had to have software guys for the 2 software businesses. And The course, of course, I had the means of production for that as a writer, but I needed a technical partner for design, infrastructure, help with community. Anyway, that was my entire model was I am going to get the audience, and then I'm going to collaborate my way to satisfy what that audience wants. And we never, in 10 years, never had a failed product because we always look to the audience. We never once said, wouldn't it be cool to make this? Not once. It was always a real audience need. Where it gets interesting is as we moved into the later years, we moved into hosting and our own CMS. Now, these, unlike the earlier products, weren't necessarily innovative, but they were ours. And our audience trusted us so much that they went with our hosting. We said, this is the hosting we use for a very high traffic site called CopyBlogger, and it's going to take care of you as well, right? So eventually you get to a value proposition that is, it's ours. And that is just a humbling but amazing place to be when you get to that level of trust with people.
So you build up this empire with co-founders, divisions under the CopyBlogger banner, the software and the SaaS, and then you sell it and you walk away. Was that walking away from CopyBlogger for you, was that as hard as walking away from being an associate with the law firm?
Well, walking away from being an associate wasn't hard at all. It may have been crazy, but it wasn't hard. It was the best day of my life. No. So we actually, it was a phased kind of thing. So we sold Studio Press to WP Engine in 2018. And then we sold the Rainmaker line of business in 2019 to a private equity group. And then I finally, divested myself of my remaining shares of CopyBlogger itself, the platform, in 2023. So it was a process. But the interesting thing was the decision to sell in 2018 really went back to 2017. I had a signed investment deal on my desk. We have never taken investors. We were completely bootstrapped. And the idea was we need to go from 12 million to 100 million. And that was the story the investors wanted to hear from us. And then on the other hand, I'm looking at my kids and realize I've got about 5 years left with them before they go off and live their own lives, as you said about what stage they're in now. And I said, I'm going to spend the next 5 years taking money, which I was always against, trying to chase this ridiculous valuation, and I'm going to miss this remainder of time with my family. So I had a whole bunch of trepidation about the investment by itself because I answered to no one all those years, right? I answered to my partners and to my employees and to my customers, right? But I didn't have this top-down relationship with someone with more money than sense, which is often the case. They don't understand what got us here. Then they want you to make changes. That means it stops working. So I was never 100% on board, but eventually I decided I can't do this. And so instead I said, let's start seeing what the market looks like out there to sell the business. Because again, we had reached low 8 figures. We had no investors. We had a good thing going, and we knew there was interest out there. And that began the conversations. I don't know if you're familiar with the WordPress space at all. But yeah, we were basically talking to WP Engine, Automatic, and Liquid Web, which was a general hosting company that established a big WordPress division. So I had 3 players to kind of bounce off each other. I really thought Automatic would be the one that was going to buy us, but Matt Mullenweg and I have always had a kind of contentious relationship, while Brian Gardner, my business partner, was on better terms. But yeah, no, it was clearly Jason from WP Engine who pursued us, said all the right things, promised on my condition that they would take all the employees of Studio Press, that no one would be let go. So they basically gave us all the money we wanted and the terms we wanted to protect our people. And so I'm like, all right, let's go.
How many people did you have at its peak? How many employees?
So we had 65 at our peak, but not all of them went there. Again, there were basically two software divisions, Studio Press and Rainmaker. And then I made the same deal in 2019 where they took the employees of Rainmaker and kept them going to keep the line of business going as well. So it was important to me because that was an uncomfortable aspect. When I started CopyBlogger, I said I'm never going to have employees, and I ended up with 65.
Right.
But it was just an opportunity each year that I didn't say no to, and we kept growing. But to me, having 65 employees means you've got 65 families you've got to look out for. And I was happy to have that mindset, but that's a little stressful.
Yeah.
So when we exited, it was important to me and the other partners, frankly, that people get taken care of, that we weren't selling out at their expense.
I see that. Excuse me, Brian and viewers, and we must thank our viewers who are joining us and with us live, Brian, and we appreciate you viewing and listening to Brian telling his story, and if you're watching the replay as well. Pardon me while I just take a drink.
Good idea.
Yeah. I noticed that you've got a paywall behind your, you've got content behind a paywall, and your monthly subscription is $20 a month. You're in France, so is that helping to pay for the croissants, Brian? Is that the story there?
The Substack premium or subscription is really, to me, the first level of customer acquisition. So there's an entire strategy related to that. I'm actually building my first introduction. So right now there's 3 courses in Further Premium. It's a really good value for the money based on what's there. And I'm introducing an introductory lower price course because I got good feedback. Again, always feedback. You gotta pay attention.
Yeah.
That people appreciated the education, but they were still kind of stuck on where to start. And so I took that to heart, and I'm creating something outside of Substack that will now be the first offer that people get before they are offered the Substack subscription. But so, I passed the bestseller status, and I think I've got just under 500 premium members. So it's a decent, it's a decent amount. Certainly nowhere near the levels that obviously I used to do, but this isn't the whole model. There's upper level offers in mind, but for the last couple of years, I've also been doing other training and coaching work. So that's really what pays the bills. But yeah, I don't know what that is. It's like $50,000 annualized, so it's
Who are you
not.
coaching, Brian?
Hmm?
Who are you coaching? Individuals or corporates or Fortune 500s?
No. See, I've never been an enterprise guy, and not to knock it because they've got money to burn at that level and expect you to charge them a lot of money or it can't be worth it, right?
Yeah, right.
But my heart's always kind of been with the entrepreneur, the solopreneur, not this make money online as you and I know it from the old days, nonsense. I mean, if you're not willing to start a real business, then I'm not the right guy for you because it is a real business. And I had to figure that out myself, right?
Yeah.
when I had I was a lawyer who had never taken a business class and didn't read his first marketing book until 1999. So
What was that? What
um,
was that book, by the way?
that was Permission Marketing, the one I mentioned earlier from Seth Godin,
Okay. And also,
which is
you followed the copywriting path as well. Do you have some favorite copywriters or books that you read in the earlier days?
yeah. Okay, let's see. I've read all of them,
Yeah.
but I really loved recommending a book called Advertising Secrets of the Written Word by Joseph Sugarman.
Oh, wow.
And in reality, it's kind of like the easy reading version of the ultimate copywriting book, which is Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. That's like the PhD level. You don't want to start there.
Yeah.
You need to get the basics down. But I remember I started, I think, with some Dan Kennedy book, and I just found it so fascinating. And I had studied screenwriting before because I thought maybe I'd give a go at that. And it's funny how complementary copywriting and screenwriting are. Not everyone sees it, but and then there's just people, just legendary copywriters. David Deutsch is on this, or he was.
Yeah, he's
There he
on
is.
all
Yeah,
day.
he's
Uh,
one of them. So
yeah,
that's an
and I
honor.
noticed that I noticed you subscribe to Casey Demchak, who's a copywriter who was also a former screenwriter.
Yeah, no, I see that all the time.
Hmm.
And history has examples of famous literary fiction writers who spent their time in advertising before. So it's not completely incompatible. But yeah, Casey, didn't he work for Jeff Walker?
He sure did.
Okay, see, and I was following him because he was saying interesting things about copywriting,
Yeah,
which is how things happen, right? With the
yeah.
notes aspect of things. And then we had an interaction, and he mentioned that he used to work for Jeff, and Jeff and I know each other from way back. I remember the first time Jeff launched Product Launch Formula was 2005, and I bought it because I'm like his copy was so good, and I'm like I'm sure that there's something hidden in here that I probably don't know. And the most useful thing about that course, and this is not a slam on the course at all, but for me, at the time it was $1,000. Now it's 2,000 or more. I don't know. But I took it and I said, I know all of this. I'm ready. And that was the most validating thing because Jeff is a super smart guy.
Yeah.
And he's gotten just even better at explaining his role. But yeah, so we used to, when we lived in Texas, we would go to Colorado for the summer, which preceded moving there. And we would go to Durango, and Jeff lives outside of Durango. And so we went to the house and hung out and all that good stuff. He's a good guy. But yeah, I had no idea that Casey used to work for him, and that was a cool connection.
Yeah, he worked in the office of Ron Howard for a couple of years as one of the
When he was screenwriting. Wow, okay.
yeah
Now
from
that's even more impressive.
yeah, that's right, Ron Howard and whoever Ansel How the guy that played Potsy in I can't remember his
Oh, Anson Williams. Yeah.
Anson Williams. Excuse me, Brian. Excuse me, viewers. I need to take another sip. Mm. All right, we're getting close to the end. I'm respectful of your time, Brian. We're very grateful that you've joined us, and we're also very happy and grateful for the viewers who have joined us live, who are watching on the replay, or maybe even listening to you, Brian, on the audio replay. Now, let's just come to the elephant in the room, shall we? We have to, because, well, at least as far as writing goes and writers. So let me just, one of the publications you subscribe to on Substack is titled AI Blew My Mind. So what blows your mind about AI?
It's really the ability to, we talk about the augmented human, right? And the expression has almost become a cliche already, which is you're not going to lose your job or your business to AI. You're going to lose it to a human using AI. And I think that aspect is inevitable. There are a lot of people who don't like that. I totally understand it. I see with it, I am very skeptical of technology in general. I remember being a cheerleader for social media back before 2010, and look at the damage that's done to us all, right? So I will never be a cheerleader for tech without skepticism, and certainly not something as powerful as AI. However, I find that AI is performing the role of doing stuff that I couldn't do or didn't want to do back in the day, where I turned to collaborators and partners. Because I don't need AI to write for me. I need it to do the stuff I don't want to do or I'm not good at, and that allows me to do more. So, for example, that publication you mentioned, very strong on stuff like agentic AI. So this is beyond, just chatting with AI or going back and forth, which can be incredibly. I mentioned, I think yesterday, people are just overcomplicating this. It's you need communication skills to get quality output from AI, and it's pretty similar to the same communication skills you need with people.
Yeah.
And yet everyone is paying for these elaborate prompts. Here's something for the audience, Mike, that they may not know. Those people peddling prompts, they use AI to create them. So can you. Don't get taken. Come on.
Oh, you're just full of gems. How do you keep this stuff to yourself?
But yeah, the agentic side is what I'm really getting into. Like, how do you create workflows that work with you so you can use your expertise and your judgment and your taste? Because I'm starting to see that in reality, it's not a human augmented by AI. When more and more people are turning to AI, it's AI augmented by a human.
Mm.
It's what AI can't do for people on its own. Like, a lot of people think it can, like it can give you a marketing strategy, or it can create your content, or this or that. And soon they're going to find that it doesn't work. And then that's when we'll get into the next phase where people realize, oh, you still need a human in the loop, and preferably one who's done this over and over for many years, if not
And there's one
decades.
thing that AI can't do, and that's be Brian Clark talking head to camera, delivering a true voice of communication and a persuasive voice of communication too. Now, persuasiveness, as we wrap up, Brian, as part of your further program, persuasive communication is a big part of it, isn't it? You talk a lot about that. Just introduce it.
Yeah, it's
Introduce us.
interesting. The video course that I'm doing is basically rhetorical devices or persuasive elements applied to presentations, which is what video is. It's what
Yeah.
webinars are. Not this so much, because we're more of a freewheeling interview type, but and yet I've been teaching those same methods in writing, because they're the same things that work in copy or in content, especially when you have content that incorporates these direct response elements, which are really things like great opening, storytelling, metaphors, analogies, all of this good stuff that makes information much more friendly to the human brain. And so a lot of what I'm teaching is just things that apply to writing as well, but in the context of presentations, and then also trying to be an example to my audience and saying, look, I hate this, but I committed to doing it. I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm getting better at it. And I'll tell you what, and the way things are going, where everyone, if they read something terrible, it's AI slop. If they read something great, it must be AI. You can't win.
Yeah.
And this is what's facing text right now. Now, I don't think we should abandon text by any means whatsoever. I think we should augment it with video and let people hear your voice, see your face, see you as a human being. And I think that helps dispel this wariness or this voice in the back of your head saying, am I just reading some AI generated thing? No, there's Mike's behind this. And I know he's being straight with me with the advice he gives, whether it's on video or whether it's in written form. So that's how I explained it to my audience. So when you started beating the same drum, I was like, that's right. And I expect more people to pick this up.
Terrific, Brian. Well, during this conversation, we've seen more and heard more of your story, some of your backstory. Some people will have known all of your stories. Some will have met you for the first time and will know much more about you now. And Brian's subscription on Substack is the publication is Further, and you can come in and join Brian at. Can I mention the fees?
Oh, sure.
You're behind the paywall. Well, at least per month, it's $20 a month, and then you've got an annual where you can save some money by paying annually. Interestingly, you don't have a founder. Why didn't you include a founder option?
Yeah, I've debated it. I've gone back and forth on whether the next level is a founder thing or if it's separate from Substack. And I think I'm leaning more towards the second option instead of parking everything on Substack. For example, Further has its own website and has for well before I moved to Substack. It just kind of repositioned when it moved to Substack. So basically, I serve people who are 50 plus, roughly Generation X, and a little older. And the message is basically, we could be the first generation that lives substantially longer. That means we have to work longer. And yet companies try to get rid of you in your 50s and certainly in your 60s. So this all goes back to that longevity economy thing, which is you live a longer life, you have to have a longer career, and yet our entire system is still focused on youth, horribly ageist. We're even ageist about ourselves. Older people are some of the worst about, making old jokes about each other and themselves. So we're in a transition, a huge demographic shift, and everything is lagging. So my message is we got to take things into our own hands, and it's no lie. Companies are using AI to reduce headcount. We're just at the beginning of that. But the flip side of that is you can use your expertise and AI and put yourself in a better situation than you had with that job. Like you said, it's not confidence, it's courage. You got to take the leap. Or you can wait till the layoff happens and then you're going to have your back against the wall. Back during the Great Recession is when I was just turning out these $1 million businesses because I happened to be in the right place at the right time, because everyone got laid off. And I hate that, but that's often the motivator that gets people to take action. I try to say, let's get started now, maybe, a little bit each day. Let's not wait on the layoff.
Yeah, well, I tell you, Brian, time always goes fast when you're having fun, mate. Whether you're
this has blown by. I've had a great time. I appreciate it. And that great Australian accent of yours doesn't hurt.
Oh, you're the one with the accent. What are you talking about?
I told people, hey, I spent 3 months in Australia and learned the language. It wasn't easy, but.
When are you coming back? Let's round off with that.
Soon. Maybe next year. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I love Australia.
And you know that Melbourne is the capital of the coffee cap. I don't know whether you drink coffee. Do you drink coffee?
Oh, absolutely. Life isn't worth living without coffee.
Couldn't argue, couldn't disagree. And Melbourne is the coffee capital of Australia. So if you do make it back to Melbourne, Australia, with your wife, I'd love to catch up and buy you a coffee and then get out of your way and let you get on with your life. All right.
Without a doubt.
Love it. Okay, that's a date. All right, Brian Clark, founder of CopyBlogger, now living anywhere and earning everything wherever he wants to in Europe, and he's given us a very straight and poignant suggestion: video communication. AI can't replace you. AI can be detected in your writing. AI can't replace you. Get into video, use it as well. Brian Clark, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Mike.